Welcome to the Jewelry Resellers Podcast, your go-to source for all things shiny, sparkly, and of course, profitable. I'm your host, Desiree, and I'll be your guide on this dazzling journey through the world of reselling jewelry. We'll be diving deep into the art and science of reselling, uncovering valuable tips, insider secrets, and sharing stories from successful jewelry resellers. We'll explore market trends, industry news, and even discuss how to find those hidden gems just waiting to be discovered in thrift stores, estate sales, and beyond. So if you're dreaming of turning your hobby into a hustle, or if you're a seasoned pro looking to stay at the top of your jewelry reselling game, join me each week for insights, stories, and more on the Jewelry Resellers Podcast. All right, welcome to another episode of the Jewelry Resellers Podcast. I am really looking forward to this episode because I got a question about this and I thought about it and I decided to really sit down and pinpoint what exactly makes a successful jewelry reseller. So if this is one of your first times listening to this podcast, I want to say hello and welcome. My name is Desiree and I am the host of the Jewelry Resellers Podcast. I have been a full-time jewelry reseller for going on 4 years now, and I am still learning, I am still growing. But I created this podcast because I wanted to help other people who are doing the same thing. And my intention with this podcast is to really provide information and resources for you to really grow and have a successful jewelry reselling business. Now, I have made a lot of mistakes, but I've also learned a lot along the way. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. I'm really going to break down what I believe it takes to be successful at this whole jewelry reselling thing. Now, there's a lot of ways you can do this, and I've talked about that in previous episodes. But today we're really just going to filter things down to the basics. Okay? And before we get started, I always like to remind you to join our weekly newsletter because that's where I make announcements. Sometimes I offer discounts on some products and things that are upcoming. And when you sign up for the newsletter, I will actually send you a list of the 20 best-selling vintage jewelry brands that I believe all resellers should know. And if you are just getting started doing this, I believe that list is going to really help you because it's going to give you a starting point without being overwhelming. And you can learn some of the brands that are on that list, and it will really give you some information and, like I said, a really good starting point. So when you are beginning this journey, or even if you've been doing it for a while, you just are increasing your knowledge in a very, like I said, simple and non-overwhelming way. All right, so let's get into today's topic, which is becoming a successful jewelry reseller. What does that involve? What does it take? And I really had to think about this. I've been thinking about this for probably going on 2 weeks because someone had asked me, how do I really make this work? I really love jewelry and I want to do this, but I feel like sometimes I just don't know enough, or I'm learning things, but they're not necessarily helping me make more sales right away. Okay, so let's break this down. And I have how many points? I have 10 points here that I want to share with you. And even if you've been doing this for a while, you know that as you grow and expand and learn, being a jewelry reseller, your journey will have all kinds of twists and turns. So it's really about being able to adapt as things change, as it relates to reselling and as it relates to jewelry, especially vintage jewelry for those of us who really like to focus on that. But it's really about making the decision to keep growing and to keep learning. Okay? So becoming a successful jewelry reseller really involves more than just having a passion for jewelry. That's something I learned early on. It requires strategy, it requires knowledge, and it requires a very, I guess I'll say, keen eye for details. And we're going to talk about some of these, I guess I can call them insider secrets, but they're not really secrets, and these are some things that definitely can help you thrive in this competitive jewelry reselling market. All right, so number one is probably not going to come as any surprise, but you need to have a deep knowledge of jewelry. Now, I know a lot of us love jewelry. We either grew up looking at or appreciating jewelry, but that doesn't necessarily equate to having knowledge about jewelry. And this is where you really, this is what I believe is the thing that's going to help you win. Because there's a lot of people out there who like jewelry, but they don't necessarily know a lot about it. They just know, oh, this is pretty. I like vintage jewelry. This is something that I like to collect, or whatever the case may be. All right, so you really want to educate yourself. And this is where I believe niching down is going to be helpful, because nobody can be an expert in every type of jewelry that exists. There's just no way. And the other thing is like we talked about earlier, you will be very overwhelmed if you're trying to learn everything and anything. So specializing in a certain type of jewelry is really going to help you, and it's really going to make you have that much more of an edge, that much more of an advantage for when you're outsourcing. Because, every week it seems like someone's telling me it's just getting harder and harder to find the jewelry pieces that they like to sell. And maybe in some ways, yes, I agree with that. But I also know that there's people who've been doing this longer than me, who have more knowledge than me, and they have a different set of challenges. It's not that they can't find it, but maybe they just can't find it in the quantity that they want, or maybe they can't find it in the time frame that they want. Okay, so you really want to take the time to educate yourself, understand the different types of jewelry. And we talk about that on this podcast all the time, from vintage to antique to contemporary designer pieces. Knowledge about the materials, the gemstones, the hallmark signs and markings and so forth. This kind of information is crucial for you if you really want to make this work. Okay? Now, the other thing I want you to think about is learning how to authenticate jewelry pieces. Now, I'm not saying you have to be like a jewelry appraiser or anything, but the more you do this, you'll start to recognize things that could be fake or counterfeit. All right. And if you do invest in learning authentication skills or learning how to authenticate jewelry, again, that's only going to help you. That's only going to put you that much further ahead. All right. So you really want to learn how to distinguish genuine pieces from counterfeits. And that, again, comes down to really niching down about a particular type of jewelry. Now, you also want to study, like we said, certain markings, manufacturing techniques, and the quality of the piece. And this could be the quality of the gemstones, the quality of the construction, and the quality of the materials used to make those particular pieces. Okay, so having all this knowledge, I think, is the most important thing to become a successful jewelry reseller. But again, you don't have to know everything about everything as it relates to jewelry. I recommend you really figuring out, what do you have access to and what do you enjoy studying? Because you will have to study and research this. You will. There's just no way of getting around it. Even if you found some gorgeous pieces, at a thrift store or maybe at a yard sale or whatever, you may not know anything about those pieces, and you'll have to do some research online to learn whatever it is you can so you can make sure that you're selling those pieces at the right price. All right, and that brings me to point number 2, which is really developing effective sourcing strategies. Now, this is another challenge when it comes to being a successful jewelry reseller, because I think a lot of us, because we are just learning this, we don't necessarily know how to find the jewelry pieces that we want to sell. And I've talked about this in previous episodes as well, about how to source jewelry and how to identify jewelry. But it really comes down to learning and expanding your sourcing for acquiring jewelry, because you do not want to rely on just one source as it relates to your jewelry inventory. All right. You want to have diverse sources. So there's different things you can explore. Again, I've talked about these: estate sales, auctions, thrift stores, online marketplaces, even private, I guess, people who are selling their collections or whatever the case may be, and learning how to build relationships with individuals looking to sell their jewelry. That can be a really valuable source. I know several jewelry resellers who do that. They have relationships and connections, and they network with people, and that is one way that they find their inventory. Now, as it relates to sourcing, you also want to get comfortable with negotiating. Because we are in the business of selling and then reselling, you can't be afraid to negotiate when you are out trying to buy jewelry to sell. You really want to be comfortable saying, hey, would you be willing to give me a deal if I bought all of this, or whatever it looks like? Because you want to make sure you secure the best possible prices, because you want to make sure you can have the highest margin possible when reselling your jewelry. So don't be afraid to negotiate. Don't be afraid to ask for a deal, or maybe a bundle discount or whatever, because this is going to help you. And not only that, but it will teach you to really study and know your numbers. Because if you know exactly how much you want to make, or if you have a certain income goal, and we've talked about that as well, then you will feel comfortable and confident negotiating, because you say, hey, I have a certain target I want to hit as it relates to how much money I want to make or how quickly I want to make it. And so when you have that knowledge already in your head, then you know right away, okay, this is my price. This is how much I'm willing to pay. Or if I'm going to pay more, then I have to really negotiate and figure out how I can make this work for me. Okay? So effective sourcing strategies is definitely key. Okay, let's talk about point number 3, and that is understanding and knowing your audience and knowing your buyer. Now, it's taken me a long time to learn this and to figure it out, but over the years, I have really come to understand what my buyers are looking for. So you want to target your market identification, I guess. You want to know who your customers are. And different demographics will be interested in different types of jewelry. Now, when I say to niche down, that doesn't mean you only have to focus on one particular brand or design of jewelry. It could be a specific era or a specific type of jewelry, right? Because I like to sell vintage jewelry, but I can't always find it. And sometimes I find modern jewelry pieces. I find semi-precious gemstone jewelry, and I know I have a lot of buyers who specifically love that type of jewelry. So when you're outsourcing, you probably will source several different types of jewelry. At least I think that's the right way to approach it, because you do have different types of people who are looking to buy the jewelry. And it also will help you too, learning about how you're selling the jewelry, because some types of jewelry are easier to sell on certain platforms or in certain marketplaces than others. And so when you understand what your buyers want, how they like to shop, where they like to shop, and what they prefer to pay, this is going to help you really have the success that you want. Okay. And again, this takes time to develop. It didn't happen for me overnight. As a matter of fact, I'm still learning these things. And sometimes things change because I change as a reseller. Like I said, I develop more knowledge, or I'm able to access better inventory. And so all of those will have an impact either directly or indirectly on your business and on your buyers as well. All right, let's talk about engagement. Now, this is something that I think a lot of people don't think about, and that is engaging with your buyers through social media and email marketing. You want to really understand their preferences. You want to get their feedback. You want to really study their buying behavior so you can tailor your sales accordingly. So if you know, well, I'll share this example. I know that I have a few customers who like specific types of jewelry when I'm selling in my live shows. Now, right now, I am really enjoying and really thriving in the live selling space, and that is how I prefer to resell my jewelry. And so I know that those buyers love the auction format of a live sale. They love to bid on pieces that they really are interested in or drawn to. And so all of these things really help me present my jewelry in a way that they are going to be receptive to. All right. Now, you don't have to do it the way I do it. You can do this on eBay. You can do this on Poshmark or Etsy or wherever. And you'll learn that those buyers have a preference in how they like to shop. Okay, so again, this takes time. This takes some trial and error. And sometimes when you do something, it may not work consistently. So you may want to have several different methods for engaging with your buyers. And you may want to have several different types of ways that you can connect with them. Like I said earlier, it might be on social media, maybe on your Instagram page or on your YouTube channel, or it could be direct email marketing. You know, maybe you send out weekly newsletters or I don't know, anything. Okay, so think about that too, because if you want to have success doing this, you really will have to take into consideration the way your buyers like to connect with you. Okay, let's talk about point number 4, and that is online presence and branding. Now, this is probably one of my favorite parts of doing this because I love social media, and I get it. Not everybody has the same excitement and enthusiasm for social media as I do, but I really want to encourage you to get comfortable being on social media and creating content for your jewelry reselling brand or your jewelry reselling business. Now, you don't have to go so far as to have a professional website, although I don't think that would hurt you. Some of the most successful jewelry resellers I know do have their own websites in addition to selling on places like eBay, Poshmark, and so forth. But you don't have to do that. And of course, that is an additional expense and additional time management to maintain the website, to update it, to, add your listings, whatever you're going to do. But at some point in this journey, that may be something that you want to consider. But in all regards, you want to establish a professional online presence where your customers can view and purchase your jewelry. Now, this could even be done on social media. You don't have to have an independent standalone website. I've seen some jewelry resellers sell on their Facebook page, their Instagram page, their YouTube channels. Okay, so whatever you're comfortable with, whatever you can manage on your own, unless you have employees, but I'm going to assume a lot of us are not quite at that stage just yet. But you really want to learn how to use social media platforms to showcase your pieces and share your stories and really engage with your followers and potential buyers. All right, the other thing you want to think about is consistent branding. Now, it'll take you some time to figure this out because not all of us really know right off the bat what we want our brand to be or how we want that to look or what we want to be known for. Okay, so branding is not just the aesthetics of what you're doing. It's not just your fonts and your website colors and that type of thing. But it's also about what do you want to be known for and how do you want to position yourself as a business or as a public persona, right? So for me, my branding is, gosh, I don't even know if I have a solid brand developed, but I know I am a jewelry reseller, and I also like to brand myself as someone who is an educator and a resource to help other jewelry resellers be successful. And in that brand, I also sell jewelry too, because I am out here in the trenches with you all, dealing with the same challenges and learning the same things and trying to make this work just like you. Now, one thing you want to remember is to maintain consistent branding across all platforms. And I have seen this where sometimes people do something different on YouTube than they do on Instagram, and maybe they do something different on Facebook. But you want to be recognizable regardless of where a customer potentially might find you or might find your jewelry pieces. So this could be using the same hashtags whenever you make a post. It could be maybe having the same style of photos, maybe having the same background or having the same type of text on your content. I mean, it could be whatever you want it to be. All right, but just make sure it's consistent so that your brand is easily recognizable. Now, the other thing you want to remember is that your brand should reflect the quality and style of the jewelry you sell as well. Okay, so if you sell vintage pieces, you want to make sure that you communicate that in your branding or, whatever type of jewelry pieces you're selling. All right, so let's move on to point number 5, and that is photography and presentation. Now, a lot of people get tripped up on photos. Some people think that you have to have really expensive cameras or that you have to have this whole big photography setup. And in time, you probably will have that just because you will want to take the absolute best photos that you can. But a lot of us use our phones to take photos. And a lot of us don't really do a whole lot of editing. I mean, of course, you want to make sure the photos are clear and in focus and they're well lit. But you don't have to really go overboard on this. I mean, unless that's your thing and that's what you want to do. But you do want to really learn how to take high quality photos that accurately represent the jewelry that you're selling. And I want to say the biggest thing that I have seen is not having good lighting. That's probably the one thing that I think people really do themselves a disservice, and they don't make sure that their photos are well lit. Now, you don't have to buy a whole lighting setup, although you can. But if you just use natural lighting in a bright room, maybe natural sunlight, if you have a big window or something like that, and you can set up your jewelry in that natural lighting so people can see it clearly, I think you're going to be fine. That's what I did for a long time before I actually had, the whole light box and the ring lights and all that kind of thing. Okay, so you want to learn how to do that, because I've even seen some people take beautiful, gorgeous photos, and that's how I recognize their brand, because their photos are so nice. Or they may have a certain style that they use when they take their photos. So you want to learn what's going to work for you and work with what you have. And you don't have to spend a lot of money. You really don't. And they have tons of tutorials and videos on YouTube that will teach you how to use your iPhone or your Samsung phone or whatever, so you can take really nice photos. Okay? Now, when we are also talking about the presentation of your jewelry, you want to learn how to write detailed descriptions. This is very important. You want to learn keywords. You want to make sure that your descriptions are accurate for each piece that you're listing or that you're trying to sell. You want to include the materials, the dimensions, the length, the condition, and any type of historical significance if it applies. I can't tell you how many listings I've seen where someone will just say gold necklace and then they write the price. And they don't tell me anything about the necklace. They don't tell you anything about anything. And while that may work in some cases, it's not necessarily showcasing the piece or really giving you the best chance of having that piece being purchased by someone who is looking exactly for that. And again, this will take time to learn, and it will vary depending on the platform that you're listing your jewelry piece on. Sometimes you'll see people write a whole paragraph. Sometimes people write a few sentences, and people like me probably do a little bit in between. All right. So if you know something about the jewelry, or you have an interesting, back history or a backstory about how you got it, you may want to share that. You may. I mean, that's not necessary, but some people enjoy those types of, that type of information. And so if you have the time, you may want to include that. But again, you really want to have really detailed descriptions, and you want to make sure that you are including specific keywords in those descriptions. So that will help your piece get found. Okay, so really think about this as you are trying to learn and grow your jewelry reselling business. All right, so let's move on to point number 6, and this is pricing and inventory management. Okay, so as it relates to pricing, now this is going to vary from person to person, business to business, piece to piece, wherever, however you're selling your jewelry. But you really want to learn how to be competitive. And again, this will happen as you research, as you start to learn what the market value is of your jewelry and what your buyers are willing to pay for certain types of jewelry. So really learn how to price your jewelry competitively based on how much it costs you to source, like I said earlier, the market value, and your target profit, how much you want to make on the jewelry piece itself, or what your income goals are. And you want to regularly review your prices in response to market changes. There's just because you price something at $50 today, who knows, maybe in 6 months, if that piece hasn't sold, maybe the price, you might want to lower the price a little bit, or in some cases, you may want to raise the price a little bit, depending on how rare or how unique or how in demand the piece is. So I know a lot of us like to kind of shoot for a 90-day target as it relates to selling the item. A 90-day sell-through rate. We like to list the item and hopefully it sells within 90 days. That's the goal for most of us, generally speaking. Sometimes it'll take longer. Sometimes it'll take 180 days, which is about 6 months. Some people are willing to wait a year to get the right price on their pieces. But I really don't think that if you want to make this work, that you should be willing to wait longer than a year to sell a jewelry piece. I think a year should be the max. But again, depending on your business and what type of jewelry you're selling, maybe you might have to wait longer than a year. All right, so it's really hard to say a general rule for this, but those are the guidelines for a lot of us who are currently doing this, and for those of us who are making money doing this. Okay, so you want to shoot for a 90-day sell-through rate, but again, adjust that as necessary depending on your business model and the piece that you are trying to sell. Okay, so we also want to look at inventory rotation. Now, this is key because if you have regular buyers, they will come back to you maybe every week, maybe a couple times a month, whatever, and they will look through your new inventory and they will see, oh, what does she have now? Or what is he selling now? And then they will even ask you, because I've had people ask me, some of my loyal customers will say, when are you posting new stuff? When are you listing new items? I want to make sure that I can see it first. And so you really want to keep your inventory fresh by regularly introducing new pieces and offering maybe some promotions on the slower moving items, okay? Because maybe you can do some markdowns if you have some really loyal buyers who always buy from you. I don't have a problem giving them a discount for something that's been sitting a while. But again, this is going to be, you're going to have to decide what works and what doesn't work for you and your business. But it is something to think about. And the other thing I learned too is sometimes I will have a lot of inventory. And just because I have a lot doesn't mean I need to put all of it up at once, right? So you may want to time how frequently you list your jewelry pieces. You may want to do 5 pieces a day, every day. So that way you're constantly adding in new items. Or maybe you want to just add new items every week. I know a lot of people do that. Or you may just want to do it like as things sell. In other words, if you sell 10 pieces, you add in 10 new pieces. If you sell 20 pieces, you add in 20 new pieces. And it's whenever they sell. So you'll just need to figure out what your inventory can handle, like what you can keep up with. And then also the timing, like, do you have time to do daily listings? Do you have time to rotate your inventory every week or whatever the case may be? All right, so keep that in mind. All right, moving on to point number 7. Let's talk about customer service and how to excel at customer service. All right, now, I think a lot of this boils down to trust, and really giving your buyers and your customers and your clients a really good shopping experience. And depending on the platform that you're selling on, sometimes the customer service, the returns, the shipping, and all of that will be handled within the platform, like if you're selling on eBay, for instance. But you really want to set up a hassle-free buying experience as well as a hassle-free return experience. And I know a lot of us don't like to think about returns and refunds and all that, but I'm here to tell you, at some point in your jewelry reselling career, it's going to happen. It's going to happen, and probably it will happen more than once. Now, luckily, it's not something that happens frequently, especially if your listings are good, your photos are good, and you really kind of set the expectation so the customer knows exactly what they're getting. But like I said, sometimes it happens, and this is really an opportunity for you to take care of your buyer. Now, I'm not saying you have to give them anything for free or say, the customer is always right, but you really want to maintain the relationship to the best of your ability. And sometimes that will be giving a refund, or it will be having to deal with returns. Okay, but you want to maintain that trust, because it takes a long time to build. People have to get to know you. And remember, these are all strangers. We're all strangers online at some point, until people get to know us and they get to trust us and they get to engage with us. Okay, so building trust with your customers encourages repeat business and positive reviews. Again, depending on what platform you're on, a positive review is very important. So these are things that we want to think about. And not all of this is going to be in your control. Of course, you can ship something as fast as possible. You take it to the post office, drop it off. But you can't help it if the post office takes a little bit longer, things like that. So all we can do is our best. And that's really what I want to emphasize here is doing your best to provide a really good customer buying experience. Now, the other thing about this, which I just want to throw out there, and it may or may not necessarily apply to you, but you also want to think about offering an authenticity guarantee. Now, depending on what type of jewelry you're selling, and especially for those of you who are in the higher end piece, higher end jewelry reselling, if you can provide authenticity certificates, if it's applicable, and offer a money back guarantee for authenticity, that is something that is definitely going to build confidence among your buyers. So again, that may not apply to you at this stage in your jewelry reselling career or business, but if it is something that you can do, then I would for sure encourage you to do so. And if you saw the episode I did with Matt Harris, and it is, I think the episode is titled How to Sell Jewelry on Consignment. He does this for a lot of his pieces because he deals in the higher end. And so sometimes he will get pieces authenticated, and then he will have that certificate, and he will include that certificate when he sells that piece. All right. So again, like I said, I just wanted to throw it out there because it may not apply to you now, but it may be something you want to consider in the future. All right, let's move on to point number 8, and this is continuous learning and adaptation. We kind of touched on this earlier. You want to really pay attention to market trends and stay up to date with the current jewelry and fashion trends, as well as the market demands. Now, remember, I have said many times that jewelry kind of parallels fashion in the sense of styles, trends, different things that could influence what is popular right now. And jewelry, not always is it directly connected to fashion, but a lot of the times it is, because jewelry is considered an accessory. And so a lot of times when people are curating outfits or wardrobes, jewelry will also be included in that. And so we want to make sure that we are knowledgeable about what is trendy and what is popular. Now, I try to do my best with this through this podcast. I like to keep you up to date on news, trends, and information as it relates to the jewelry industry. And I try my best to make sure that at least you're aware of some of the things that are developing as it relates to what we do. So you're going to have to be ready to adapt your business strategies, sometimes in response to these market changes. Okay. Now, you don't have to spend hours and hours, researching this or following certain, news sites or anything like that. But maybe every now and again, maybe once a week, maybe once every couple weeks, kind of scroll through on social media or maybe on a news website and put in jewelry and just see what comes up. Just see what types of things are happening as it relates to jewelry and news. Now, the other thing I want you to think about is also your own professional development as it relates to having a jewelry reselling business. Because for some of us, this could be the very first time we've ever set up a business or run a business, and it is a business. I know some of you are hobby resellers, but in the eyes of the IRS, they consider it a business if you're making any kind of money from it. And I know some of us do this just for fun, but you really want to continually grow your skills as a business person. I mean, in addition to continuing learning about jewelry, you want to learn about business management, maybe online marketing. You may want to attend workshops or take some online courses or go to trade shows just to expand your knowledge and network with other people who have similar businesses or have the same passion and interests as you as it relates to jewelry. Now, this is something I really enjoy about being a jewelry reseller. As a matter of fact, I was just talking about this yesterday, and that I am really excited to be attending some jewelry shows here in Las Vegas this summer. As a matter of fact, I think I'm attending at least 3 shows, and they're all kind of back to back happening at the same time. And so I'll be attending these jewelry shows, and I also went for the first time last year. So this year, I kind of know what to expect, and I'm hoping to run into some of the same people I met last year, and it's just a lot of fun. And it's so exciting and thrilling to see so many beautiful jewelry pieces in person that I probably would not see any other way. So you also have the opportunity to buy jewelry, but I don't really buy a whole lot when I go to these shows. I go mostly for the education and the networking and the meeting of other people who are also doing the same thing. And you learn a lot too. You learn just by being in that environment. So if you do have the opportunity to attend a jewelry show, I highly recommend you do so. And I think I'll do a podcast episode on jewelry shows, because I have had quite a few questions about jewelry shows. So I will be doing that probably in the next couple weeks. All right, let's move on to point number 9, and that is leveraging customer feedback. Now, we did talk about feedback as it relates to the customer experience, but feedback is another way for you to learn how well your business is doing, how well you are doing as a business owner. So depending on the platform that you sell on, of course, feedback could already be integrated into that. But if not, you do want to implement some type of a system to gather customer feedback on your jewelry items so you can improve what you're doing, improve how you're offering or how you're selling, or maybe make some improvements in your customer service or whatever. So, and this doesn't have to be a really complicated thing. I mean, if you're posting, using social media and you're posting on, let's say, Instagram, you can even do a post and say, hey, I would love your feedback on what you think I could do to improve my business, or what do you think about these jewelry pieces, or how do you think I could make this better for you as a buyer. I've seen people do that, and they just ask for feedback directly in a social media post, and you can do that too. And some people will give you some great ideas. Some people probably will just say, oh, everything is great, But the ones who do actually give you some helpful feedback and helpful ideas, those are the ones you really want to pay attention to. And those are the ones you really want to take some time to evaluate and consider, okay, how can I implement this idea? Or, what can I do maybe a little bit differently to get this, to make this a more positive experience. All right. So I think you should be open to it, and be open even to the criticism you might get as well. Because let me tell you, I've gotten feedback from lots of people already, and not everything has been perfect. I've been corrected when I've made mistakes, but I also take into account when people say this could be better or this could be different. I really appreciate that, and I don't take it as a personal attack, because I do want what I do and what I sell to help people, or to give people what they want, or to just really do the best I can. So don't be afraid of critical feedback either, because when all is said and done, it will only help you, because there could be things that you're not aware of that maybe somebody points out and you're like, wow, I didn't even think about that. So, just appreciate every type of input that somebody is willing to give. Okay. And of course, if it's something nasty and negative, you just delete and move on. But for the most part, people want to be helpful. And then those are the responses that you really want to think about. All right, so let's move on to our final point. And I think I've already talked about this too. And this is networking and partnerships. Like I said, attending some of these events the jewelry shows like I talked about earlier, but really making connections in this industry or in this space. I can't tell you how important it is to build relationships with other jewelry resellers, jewelry professionals, maybe even people who do jewelry repair or people who are suppliers or whatever the case may be. Because the more people you know who are doing this or who are knowledgeable about doing this, the more it's going to help you grow and expand as well. I can't tell you how much support I have gotten from people, and maybe they're not necessarily jewelry resellers, but they are involved in the jewelry industry in some way. Some people are manufacturers, some people are suppliers. It's just so nice to really be able to talk about things and bounce ideas off of other people. And sometimes you can even partner and collaborate with these other people that you're meeting and you're networking with. You can collaborate on social media. Maybe you can collaborate on your websites. Maybe you can partner in doing a joint sale or some type of event together. I mean, the opportunities and the possibilities truly are endless. And you just open up so much as it relates to new and different ideas for your business. And sometimes too, you really just need the support of knowing that you're not doing this alone, because reselling in general can be a very lonely journey. Even though you may know other resellers, let's say online or maybe in a Facebook group or something like that, but there's not really a whole lot of in-person connecting as it relates to that. So you want to give yourself an opportunity to maybe make connections in real life. Now, of course, you don't have to, but I think maybe, going to lunch with someone and talking about what's working and what's not can be very helpful in a way that the online networking just doesn't match. All right, so think about that. Think about how can I meet other people who are doing the same thing, and how can we help each other in our businesses? All right, so as you can see, I did do a lot of thinking about this, because I really want to break down how to be successful at this, what it's going to take, what you can do, what you should do. All right, so let's go over this list again, because some of these things may be quote unquote easy. Some of these things you're going to have to learn and it'll take time. And some of these things could be brand new ideas to you. All right, so point number 1 on how to be a successful jewelry reseller is the deep knowledge of jewelry in the education. I think I'll probably be saying that until I can't say it anymore. But education is everything when it comes to jewelry. Knowledge and knowing exactly how to find what you are looking for. Point number 2 is sourcing strategies and really learning how and where to find what you're looking for as it relates to jewelry. Number 3 is understanding your audience, understanding your buyers. What do they want? Are they looking for? Number 4 is your online presence and branding. We talked about this, social media, and learning how to be consistent in how you show up across multiple platforms. Number 5 was photography. Remember, you don't have to spend a lot, but you will have to learn some skills as it relates to taking really good photos of your jewelry pieces. Point number 6 was pricing. Remember, we want to make sure we're making money at this and we're not just breaking even. Now, I understand sometimes we will just break even, but for the most part, we are in this business to make money. All right, so we have to learn how to price competitively. Point number 7 is customer service. We went into great detail about that and how to offer a really good buyer experience. Point number 8 is continuous learning. Yes, we always want to increase our knowledge because that definitely gives us an advantage. Point number 9 is customer feedback. This will only help you do what you do better. And then point number 10 is networking and partnerships and connecting with other people who do the same things or maybe do something different, but your businesses complement each other in some way. All right, so mastering these aspects and consistently applying them to your business, you can definitely, or you will set the foundation for a successful jewelry reselling venture. I want you to remember that success in this business requires patience, perseverance, and a continuous effort to really stand out in the crowded jewelry reselling market. All right, now, I hope that this episode was helpful, and I hope it gave you some tips and encouragement in how to make this business work for you. And I might revisit this topic in a future episode because the more I learn, the more I want to share with you to help you grow and to help you really establish yourself as a successful jewelry reseller. And the one thing too, I really want you to take to heart is that it will take time. None of us become successful at this overnight. And there's people who've been doing this, like I said, for decades, and they are still learning and growing as well. All right, so before we close out, I want to remind you to head on over to the jewelryresellerspodcast.com if you would like to join our weekly newsletter. I will have a link in the show notes of this episode, as well as in the description if you are listening to this on YouTube. All right, I want to thank you so much for spending this time with me. I'll check in with you again really soon.